One of the biggest problems in society is people not being themselves. It seems a weird flex to say, I've always been myself my whole life, so I don't understand how someone else would try to be anything other than themselves, but they hide behind a mask and things. But if you was to say something like that, to say, "Oh, I've always been myself," people think, "Oh, look at you trying to be perfect." It's like that's so weird, isn't it? it the argument then is that everybody's fake. Well, how can that be normal? That doesn't even make sense. Why would you want to be anything other than yourself? So you have to start realize if that's the case, then that means an awful lot of the world needs healing. Most people, without being rude about it, are bent out of shape. You need to bend yourself back into shape. So like, I was thinking about it just now, and I just thought, anytime you speak from a healed state, or you've lived your life with integrity, morals that maybe most people just don't have, and they've always been insecure, and all these things, anybody that has confidence in themselves will be perceived to be like arrogant or something, or they're trying to perceive themselves to be perfect. It's like that doesn't make sense though, because we should all be being ourselves. So some of us innately are just true to ourselves throughout our life. Like for instance, I've anyone seeing all my content now. A lot of my content does get blocked. Unfortunately, I get like 40 views. So unfortunately, not as many people know my journey as much as I would think based on the amount of content I've created. But I share my highs, my lows, my insecurities, my ambitions. I share every part of me, and I have for years because I don't want to be perceived as anything other than me. I mean, I talk about it a lot. Like I consider our flaws, and maybe the inadequacies that other people maybe sometimes are a bit annoyed by. I see them as endearing qualities, and I think the right people will cherish us for it. So I think when you try to mold and sculpt yourself to fit in with society, you just become a mirror of another insecure person. So it never makes sense. It's like when people have cosmetic surgery and they completely obliterate their faces. Now, you can't tell someone how you should look, but I think the majority of us would look and go, that looks an absolute mess. It's like you're playing putty with your face. And it literally, without being rude, that's what it is. And it's, of course, once you've done the work, it's done. I don't know if you can reverse it. And I just think people should, in my own personal opinion, which we're all valid and allowed to have, which doesn't mean it's correct to every situation. It doesn't mean that I have influence over someone else's life. But from a perception from my own self and looking at the world, I think people should just appreciate themselves for who they are. That's personally how I think. Okay, some people are not going to be as handsome or pretty as someone else, but just make peace with that. The vessel we have is the one that carries us through life. And I think just make peace with it. If someone's not going to like you for an appearance, then they're not for you. If someone's not going to like you for your personality, guess what? They're also not for you. And it may very well be that you only have a very small subset of people who will truly appreciate you. Guess what? It's fine. We don't need big armies around us. Look at me. I mean, I don't consider myself ugly. I don't consider myself particularly handsome. I think I'm in the middle. I don't know. If I'm going to give myself an arbitrary number, let's say 7. I don't know. Maybe someone will say less. Someone will say more. I don't care really. I mean, it's irrelevant. But with that in mind, I'm still like, you could argue, is it? I may be attractive to some people, but I'm alone, often by choice. But I'm still alone, so it doesn't really matter. So if someone's insecure that people don't like them, it's like you've got to ask yourself the question of why do you want people to like you in the first place? Because someone like me I'm very selective of who comes on my journey rather than allow people to choose whether I can, you know? So I uphold the standards in my own life. I'm someone, like, I talk about it a lot. I only want a very small group around me, like very, very like secure members of family who I trust. Not all family. I've been pushing some away. I've set incredibly firm boundaries. I'm looking for a very highly stable quality companion. So I'd like to be married one day, but it's going to have to take someone incredible. And I'm not looking to jump in and out of like one night stand relationships, fleeting romances to get to that person. I'd rather just be alone. And it does get hard. It gets really hard and frustrating. Of course, I want to be in love. I want to share experiences. I want to get on with life. So there's a very lonely side to my life, and I'm very open and transparent about that. But okay, it's self-inflicted, but I don't think it matters whether it's self-inflicted or whether you're rejected by people. Either way, there's a level of loneliness within it. Now, of course, rejection hurts, and I've done a separate video on rejection. Believe me, it bothers me a lot. I take it personal, and that's a completely different angle to, I think, to the way that other people feel rejection. Though I consider it a betrayal rather than it affect my self-esteem. So it doesn't knock my self-esteem. I think that's where the difference in the rejection comes. If someone's insecure in themselves and they're rejected, then of course it's going to enhance their insecurities, and they're going to feel really, really fragile and low about themselves. I'm not the same. I'm not like that at all. If I feel betrayed from that rejection, so I feel slanted, I close that. I set a barrier straight away. Like, that person's not good enough for me. That person will not have another chance to hurt me. All these sort of things. I'm not having someone bounce in and out of my life. So my standards are high, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when it doesn't work out. But I think you really have to start with a very, very strong center. And the only way you're ever going to have a strong center is to truly value you. I think too much is this where people just start gravitating left and right, looking at other people, going, oh, I like their qualities. I wish I had their talent. It's a waste of energy. It really is. You're just trying to be something you're not. And then eventually you get resentful of people who maybe have traits that you wish you had. So you're looking, oh, look at them trying to be perfect. They're probably not. They're probably just going about their day. If someone's incredibly beautiful, like, let's say incredibly stunning, they can't change that in the same way we can't change our appearances. A natural appearance is that's what you're born with. That's what you have to work with your whole life. Don't hold anything against someone for being beautiful or unless they're not attractive. It's irrelevant. That's just the, what you call it, the meat suit, like people like to call it. A personality, of course, matters far more. But again, personality comes from the fact that some people have weaknesses, they have addictions, they have other tendencies, and those things can be manipulated and altered. So your personality, if you have a strong personality or not, but then some people can't handle a strong personality. So it might have someone who's very insecure, might look up at someone who's very confident and secure. So someone like myself, you can see I'm very opinionated and very direct. I have high standards, so I hold people accountable. And someone who is maybe, I don't want to consider weak, but maybe they're not ready, maybe you'd look on and think, oh, that's attractive, but you wouldn't be able to handle my presence. Because I call things out, and someone that is insecure and vulnerable, maybe they're not ready to hear that. So it's about building ourselves up in stages. But this is why I've wrote this in one of my books. It's a lot harder to heal. It's a long process. So if we don't remove our personality from the beginning, and we look at life like this is a blank canvas, this is the tools I have to work with, and I'm not here to hurt myself. That's a great place to start. Now, it's hard as an adult. You can't go back. You're going to have to heal. It's going to take time, even years. If you're a child, if you can have that strong footing to begin with and love yourself, then you have all the tools to build a beautiful life, and you don't have to go through that extended periods of healing and finding the love of self. So it's like one of those things. Again, I've done this in one of my books, Heal Your Mind to Free Your Soul. There's a chapter, one of my very favorites, called Children. And in that one, I talk about raising our children, but it's also about giving them the tools to love themselves. It's so important. It all stems from childhood. Everything stems from childhood. And I think too many kids are told to be adults too early. But also, it's like you've made to feel bad for loving yourself or having a good opinion of yourself. So it's almost like people want to bring you back down a peg or two. I'm going to tell you how I raised my daughter, because I talk about it a lot. And believe me, she's incredibly special. I love her. Of course, she's my daughter, but I'm so proud of who she is. She knows herself. She has high standards, her morals. She has integrity. Of course, she has insecurities of her own that sometimes surprise me. But these are her to work through. It's part of her personality. But the one thing I've always done with her, for instance, when she was growing up, she'd say, "I love you," and I'd say, "I love me too." And she'd go, "Oh yeah," but it's like, I always found it funny, but it was reinforcing the self-love I have. And then, of course, after I'd say, "I love you too." And I always make the point to her that, you've got to love you too. And she goes, "Oh, I do." And she's had that whole life, though. And it's like, it reinforces it in your mind. There's nothing wrong with saying, "Oh, I love me." I think it's an important place to start for sure. So, like I said, it seems a weird flex to say, I've always been who I am. And it just, how is that? How can that possibly be a flex? But again, it just shows how many people I think have been misguided throughout their whole life. It's nothing to be ashamed of, though. It's things to work through. But again, the worst thing you can have is insecurities and project it onto other people. That's not healthy. I think at the end of the day, if you have a tendency to feel insecure, invalid, not good enough, then I think projecting that onto someone else is only furthering the misery. I don't see the point of bringing other people down like that. I talk about certain parts of my life, and maybe there's certain people in it, but it's always from the point of education. I don't target people to bring them down. I always say that I hope people heal, but they just won't heal around me. They'll go off and do their journey, and it's like it's none of my business. I don't wish for anyone's downfall. I just wish that I hope they heal, and I hope they transform their life. Um, and they do things. It's like it's irrelevant to me. Even if they've hurt me, it's like it's not, you hopefully you heal and you can overcome that. But again, it's not my business. But I don't sit here and wish for someone's downfall. I don't wish for someone to be worse than me. I think we should all be inspiring each other to lift together. We should all be there. It's a bit like when you look at people, maybe someone's successful and even wealthy, and some people get jealous and envious of that. And I just think, why don't we just all strive for that instead of being jealous of it? Why should, if you know what I mean? Like some people would just rather everybody was in poverty. Well, that standard doesn't make sense to me. I don't see why would we want to live in poverty as misery. It gets miserable down there. It gets stressful. Why don't we all just strive to be wealthy together? It's not the detriment of anyone else, but it's like, wouldn't that be nice if we all have really nice homes? It was a nice luxury way of living, and everybody lived like that. God, that'd be a nice world, wouldn't it? So I think living in a world of wars and poverty isn't exactly the status we should all try to bring each other to. So we want to sort of outgrow that somehow. And I think you can if everybody just starts loving each other a bit more. So if you love yourself, you have the capacity to then love another. If you don't love yourself, you can't love another because you don't know what it feels like to actually have love because you don't even love yourself. So you definitely wouldn't be able to receive it for sure. But yeah, this video come up on my TikTok. It's normally I tag videos when I suggest it, but I don't think it was like such a huge video to be tagged. But it triggered me straight away, and I just went, "Oh, for crying out loud!" Like I'm selective of the videos I create, and sometimes I just think sometimes it's a bit too simple for me. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And then just something just seared into my head. It was more the fact that you'd feel you look like you're posturing as trying to be perfect, just because you're saying you've always been yourself your whole life. And I just straight away in my head I thought, how is that normal? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't. So yeah, I'll show the video. So it's not really a video per se. I don't think it is. I think it's just music over the top.
I'm looking.
I'll be careful with copyright. I can't play anything with music. But anyway, it just says fake. This is what I thought immediately. It was faking being okay is exhausting, and I thought straight away, of course it is. Of course it would be. To be anything other than yourself is to play a character. And if think about it, if you was in the movie industry, you could be an actor. You have to go on set, and then you go home. To be on acting duty constantly, I don't see how anyone can have that. The actors put on a mask, and people are no different in society. If you're going to wear that mask all day, that must be exhausting. Never being truly yourself, and I don't see how it serves a purpose because what image are you trying to portray? So someone might say, for instance, let's say someone looks up to me. I'm not saying that's the case, but let's say someone looks up to me and they say, I want to be like them. Would it be exhausting being like me if it's not your own personality? Because I'm quite direct. Let's say you're not a very direct person and you're a bit more delicate in your life. That would be exhausting to thrust yourself so far forward all the time. I'm quite a forward thinker as well, so my mind's always stimulated. So if you're trying to mirror me, you try thinking all the time because I'm a natural thinker. So that's just how I am. So it's not exhausting for me. It's just how I am. So someone else sitting there trying to think all the time, it might drive them nuts, and then they get exhausted from that. There's so many nuances to it. I hold myself accountable. I'm always healing. Well, I rapidly ascend and improve my life. I'm not someone that just sits still for too long, and I think that exhausts someone that wants to rest. You think, oh my God, he's moving forward again. Maybe I want to record a video. If you're going to mirror me exactly, then you better get recording this, you better get recording that. Meanwhile, you're thinking of this, you're overcoming that. You're holding people accountable. You're like putting out fires everywhere. But that's just who I am. And that's just natural. So anytime I do something, it's literally just how I feel in that moment. It's like, it's okay. Again, it's like to be anything other than yourself would be an exhausting phase of your life. And I think if you've done it your whole life, I can't imagine how exhausting that must be. And I've spoke about that as well, that the longer you play a character, the harder it is to figure out who you are. And you may even forget entirely. And I think that's the part that can destroy you. And sometimes it's not. I think we all should be held accountable. But sometimes it can be the people you surround yourself with, especially relationships. Someone could make you feel unworthy, or or like there's flaws within you. Maybe you can't be trusted. So then eventually, maybe you start to grow and feel like you can't be trusted. You're not loyal because that person's told you you're not loyal your whole life. So now you feel a bit insecure. That I don't want to upset them. I better not talk to this person. And you eventually become a shell of who you are. And literally, a narcissist can destroy someone like that, especially if you're a very caring and compassionate person with empathy. It can take its toll for sure. So, but I always say about being accountable. So I think there's a level of victimization in it, and there is, and it's not about minimizing that because some people have genuinely struggled. And I would never want someone to feel like it's entirely their fault. But I think there is a level of accountability though, and I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that. So if you put yourself in a relationship that doesn't work, you do have to acknowledge at the very least that you put yourself in that relationship. You could argue someone coerced you, they lied, they wore a mask. That's fine, but you still place yourself there. So at least acknowledge that much. And then throughout the relationship, why did you stay? And then you've got to start looking through it. Again, it's not about hurting yourself over it. It's accountability. The reason you're accountable is because now you're becoming honest with yourself. And then in the future, you can see these signs yourself and you're aware of them, and then you'll take action. So you won't set yourself up for the same situations again. But if you're going to have the gloss over your eyes, tell yourself it's never my fault, blah, 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 you'll find yourself in repeated cycles because you've never addressed the situation. And again, it's figuring out who you are. But yeah, like I said, if you can figure it out as a child though, and not lose your innocence early on, which not everybody has the capacity to. Everyone, different upbringings, the people you're around, even bullies at school, everything can sort of alter who we are, or at least how we perceive ourselves to be, and it can change behavioural cycles. But eventually, you have to try to get back to who you are. And sometimes it is to isolate yourself. Isolating yourself is one of the best things for a period. You can really go within because you've got nowhere else to look but yourself. So yeah, and it's hard. I've been alone for 8 years, so it's been a huge healing journey for me to deal with the trauma I've been through too. But I've never lost who I am. Different versions of self, of course. There's been like a more hot-headed, stressed version back in the past. And I take accountability. That was me reacting to situations, which in hindsight, you don't have to react all the time. You can just ignore things. It's your ego. So my ego was really enhanced. So it's making me very stressed, very reactive. Again, that's me. But it doesn't mitigate the situation. So there's still going to be underlying issues. So if someone's causing that, there's a cause and effect. But again, I still have to take ownership of the fact that I was reacting to it. So someone else could be triggering me, and yeah, they're an issue. But how did I react to it? What the options I had around it? In hindsight, I didn't need to. And in the current version of me wouldn't bother so much. I would just think they're an idiot. And again, that's accountability. So yeah, what they put here, always on the outside looking in, sick of being sick, fed up, I don't fit in, awkward personality, I wish I wasn't me. And I think that's the part where it gets really alarming and worrying because you've lost who you are to such a degree that life loses meaning and you don't feel like it's worth being here because you don't have any value to your life. And I think it's just really sad. And again, it's going to take a long time to heal that. You can't just click your fingers. There's no way, not when it's that deep. You're going to have to start taking steps forward. So, for instance, it's like pick yourself up. I always think like places of work is important. If you're in a place you don't like or you're not working at all, I think you've got to have ambition in your life, fulfillment, whether it's a side project, it's something you're going to do solo, you're going to create a business, or it's working for someone else, but finding something you actually enjoy doing, and hopefully you find a group that you can actually hang around with and you actually get on at work. Because I think a toxic work environment is detrimental. So always be prepared to leave if it's not working out. Why keep yourself miserable? But if you can do that, then I think you're starting to make the steps toward independence anyway. And of course, if you're doing a good job or you've got friends, it can help improve your morale. So then you can actually feel good about yourself. But you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and start seeing your qualities. So if you're a sensitive person, I would argue on the counter side of that, you would argue that means you care. All these little things. If there's a lot of, I think there's certain traits within us that are more precious than I think most people give themselves credit for. Because we take it for granted because it's who we are. But when you look at the wider world, you see the flaws. So let's say you could argue that you care too much about people and it makes you sad. Well, it makes you sad because a lot of the world is greedy and spiteful. So you have a trait that is actually very caring, endearing. And it's actually a rare commodity, like a gem. But you're looking past the gem and just focusing on the misery that it causes. But it's because you're not around people who appreciate you, potentially, but also they don't have the same morals. So when you seek validation from other people, maybe even look to mirror them, you're trying to mirror horrible people. So they're not even role models to mirror, and yet you want to reduce yourself to them, and you feel miserable because that's what you're mirroring as well. The misery that in people. Why would you want to be like that? Again, you can go on so many layers with this. For instance, you've got to build resilience. That's what one of them is. So it's like, I don't want to keep harping on about me. I don't want to seem like I'm perfect, but I've been myself my whole life. So I'm like a brick. I just refuse to do anything I don't want to do. I never have. Even in childhood, I've been very firm about who I am. All my brothers, sisters, they've all they drank alcohol excessively. They've had cigarettes. Some have dabbled in drugs. I would argue all of them probably. I've never had drugs. Never smoked a cigarette. Only had alcohol, for instance, when it's like a function or something. It's very rare. I'm not into it. In fact, I'm not into destroying my body. I've always loved who I am. And yet I'd have peer pressure even from a young age. Like, oh, you're so weird. Like, you're a hermit, all this stuff. And I'd have these words, they would be said at me. I think, okay, I don't care. It's irrelevant what someone says about me, because a lot of the time they don't go deep enough within you to figure out who you are, what you like. Even your brothers and sisters, they always saw me as funny, but they always saw me as awkward. And I'm the most stubborn person they know. That's what they've always said. And it's like, yeah, I like being stubborn. Why not? Why should I just stop? Why should I drop my morals to try and fit in with you people? If you want to lower your standards, I'm not fitting in with you. I'll meet up when you're doing normal stuff, and that's how I am. But some people are not like that, and they will follow the crowd. So then you start to destroy your body, and sometimes some of these habits, these toxicities, can destroy your mind too. So there's a lot to solve, of course, but you do have to start. I think you have to start with looking at yourself, look at your qualities. And I think and then stop being so critical, and always look at the counter side to it. So, like I said, if you feel lonely, think about it. Why are you lonely? Because people don't like me. Okay, who are the people that don't like you? Oh, everyone. Everyone's a very broad statement. A lot of time it's the societies within. So let's say, like, for instance, you live in a low income society. Me too. Hence my aloneness. It might very well be that you're destined to be around a higher caliber of people who don't dabble in substances. They have high morals, they have ambition. Maybe you haven't met your people yet, so you're lonely because you're in a crowd of people that are not familiar. They don't match you. But one day you won't feel so lonely. But you're going to have to uplift yourself, because this is how I see my life. For instance, let's say my soulmate, my person. Let's say they're famous. Just to put it out there, let's say famous. Well, famous person potentially has had to work really hard to get to where they're going. So they're very high vibrational because they've shedded the layers. They're confident in themselves. They're a vibrant personality. They know who they are. They have high standards in their life. But they're also high achievers. Well, that's not someone that's at the bottom abusing themselves, abusing others, no ambition, no standards. Sometimes you do have to show the disparity between. So that stands to reason then, for me to even be able to meet said person, let alone coexist with them, my standards have to raise. I have to embody my true, authentic self. I have to be at the same level as them, not only to be meeting them, but to be able to coexist with them. So that's what we have to do. So if you find yourself, right, really surrounded by low vibrational people, it doesn't match who you are, you're going to have to start improving your life, improving yourself effectively. But it all starts with self, of course. I'm very transparent. If you look at my life right now, I don't have anything. Like, it's outrageous, but I know who I am, and I have no doubt of my future. But it doesn't help me. Sometimes I feel really low. Like, I was even low this morning today. I've had a bit of a pity day today, and I'm like that. I can be like quite often. I can get frustrated that a lot of what I do doesn't grow. I don't have the life that I feel I deserve. And I think some people would probably argue similarly. Like, if they looked at what I'm doing, you'd think that's crazy. He's not successful, because I think that. But then some people might say, who cares? But again, it's irrelevant. The point is, it's like, a lot of time you're going to have to evolve yourself to become your purest self. And you're going to have to push yourself as far as you can to achieve your biggest success. And often it's going to be, you have to transform before that comes. Rarely is it the other way around. So, I'm not going to get my success until I can handle my success. I'm not going to get the success until I push myself beyond my comfort zone to achieve that. So it's all these little milestones, but not until I'm ready. And it'll be like sometimes you are left in that holding pattern where it's create, because it's fine tuning and molding us, and it's showing us that we deserve to be there. That's one of them. But these are higher level things. At the very bottom, at the very beginning, you're just going to have to start finding that compassion for yourself that you would feel. That's another thing. If you have compassion for others, let's say someone else was struggling, how would you feel towards them? And it's having that compassion for self. Again, I think too many people are told they're less important than others, and it's, think about them, think about them. I often put it to like people who are starving and there's bread on the table, and the morally righteous thing is to say everybody else eat, I'll have the last bit, and it's not enough. Well, I'm not asking. It's not, the suggestion isn't to be greedy, but we do have to love ourselves enough to prioritize ourselves as well, though. So it's like, don't just like, it's about, you can have so much compassion, but to own detriment. Well, sometimes you do have to prioritize yourself. You could argue it's the righteous thing to do to let everybody else survive while you don't, and it's like, that might be righteous, but it doesn't serve you very well. So if people aren't going to respect you, then why do you respect them? And again, it's about learning to set boundaries. It really is. Even if you have to remove everyone, believe me, I've removed most people from my life because I've assessed every single one over a period of time, and I already instinctively knew everybody's personalities anyway. And then I just watched them enough to validate, and then I was like, okay, I've had enough. Enough's enough now. I'm not wasting any more of my life with this. Cut. Off. So, and I'm robust with that, and it gives you peace of mind. You set boundaries, a perimeter, and say, right, this is my group. Even if it's one person left, even if there's no person left, it's like, okay, this is the. If you think about it like that, it's just like the quota I was dealt with. These were the people put in my life. None of them are matching up for the next phase of my life. So, unfortunately, none of you are coming on the next phase. That was a chapter of my life. I'm not particularly happy. I have never been happy surrounded by these people. So, my loyalty no longer extends to them. If they wanted to invest in me at any point, they would have done. Enough's enough. And I think there is a point of that. There's too much of this. So you got to be loyal to your family. You got to be for what though? Like, people have to be loyal to you too, and they have to uplift you. And if all they've done is put you down, then what are they good for? Now we could go on all day. I'm already at half an hour. I think I've gone way too far with this. Hopefully, I've given some sort of like idea really what to look for in improving your life. But it does start with us. And again, like I said at the beginning, it seems a weird flex to say I've been myself my whole life. Well, look at him. It's like, what the hell? How is that not normal though? And I think, again, shows how bent out of shape the whole planet is really, and how toxic it all is, and how everybody just seems to like want to mirror and copy everyone. I think the best image to put it into like a visual is, you get those popular girls like American. You can see them in American sitcoms and things where they're in high school, and you got the popular group, and you got the normal people, and you maybe got some what you consider weirdos. They actually, if you actually look at it, there's more weirdos and more unpopular people than there is popular. Well, that's really the point of a popularity contest, I guess. But then let's say you got, like, usually it's girls, but we can have the guys. But let's just do the girls, the women. You'd have the leader, and then you have the minions. So maybe you've got 3 or 4 minions following the leader, and they're all trying to mirror and copy that leader. Now, most of them don't have the same personality and traits as that leader, but they try to embody them to fit in. And as soon as they step out of character, the leader pulls them up on it, and the others ridicule them. That tends to be like the what happens. And it's just sad, isn't it? Because effectively, who made that person the leader? And if that leader, for instance, is flawed in any way anyway, it's like everybody's following a flawed person. And everybody's looking to mirror who they are, and it doesn't make sense, And then you have like the ones who maybe consider weirdos, and they would be ridiculed, laughed at, made to feel odd, secondary, not good enough. But really, they're the ones you should be looking up to. They're not weird. They're independent. They know who they are. You're going to find those ones that are considered weird, although they may suffer trauma later from all the ridicule and things they've been through. A lot of them will establish unique friendships of their own, and they will hopefully have confidence in themselves, but they would do their own thing. And that's what should be applauded, is that independent mind, the ones that can think for themselves, and they're not here to be a copy of anyone else. That's what I appreciate more. So in those circumstances, that's what I would applaud. And when I look at my daughter, to be honest, that's what she's found. She's never wanted to join any popular groups. It's not her. she's found a group of people who are very unique in themselves. They're very independent, own unique personalities, and they all love each other for it. And I'm like, I'm so happy that she's found this sort of group, because they're all happy together with that. And she's quite feisty, she's quite opinionated and things, so it's nice. So she's like, I think helps give the confidence to the group. So now, on the outside, maybe they'll look at them and think they're weak or they're, but they don't realize how cool they are together. And that's really what should be applauded. And I think she is a beautiful example of that.